latest version of President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill is out. We're combing through it. It truly came out moments ago. It includes a package of changes, big changes in some cases, to President Trump's agenda that reflect days of negotiations that have been happening here in Washington to win over key Republican holdouts. Tonight, we are watching this crucial gamble play out as Speaker Mike Johnson, is promising a vote on this tonight. There was even a White House intervention this afternoon where the president fought to convince a group of Republican hardliners to vote yes, to commit to it. You can see them in between this tree coming into the White House. It's still not clear that he has the votes, but Speaker Johnson has told my colleague Manu Raju the plan is a go.
The plan is to move forward as we expected. That was a very productive meeting at the White House. I think we're in a very good place. I think that all of our colleagues here will really like this final product, and I think we're going to move forward. We will all be surprised. There's not much changing here because the underlying product we thought was so well done.
Now, a reminder, Speaker Johnson can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes. Congressman Thomas Massie is already a pretty unpersuadable no, as some might put it, as key holdouts in the Freedom Caucus aren't at a yes either.
I don't think it can be done today. I mean, the runway is short today.
We're going to work with the president today. We're going to work with our colleagues to deliver, but there's a long way to go.
There's some kind of belief in Washington, D.C. that once today comes and goes, that this cannot be fixed. This is a completely arbitrary deadline set by people here to force people into a corner to make bad decisions.
My source tonight is the last voice you heard there. Republican Congressman Scott Perry met with President Trump today, and he joins me now, and it's great to have you here, sir. I know these changes are just coming out moments ago. Are you happy with what you see in these changes?
Well, Caitlin, thanks for having me on. And of course, I never said I was a no, but I said I had concerns. And now that we have the text, now we're going to go through it, and we are going through it. And of course, people often say things in Washington, D.C., but it's what's written on the paper, what you're actually going to vote on, that's really important. And I'm a guy who likes to read the bills. I'm not one of those people that says, I'm going to vote for it to find out what's in it. So we have to make sure that they have stuck to their word on certain provisions that we have asked for that are critical for all of us for passage of this or for affirmative votes.
But you're not a yes yet.
Like I said, I have concerns. I want to see what they did with the things that they talked about, but how they came out in the language. I said the devil's in the details, and the details are very, very important. Like you said, we just got the bill within the last 30 minutes, so we have to comb through it now.
Part of that includes speeding up work requirements for Medicaid. Instead of 2029, it's now going to be to the end of 2026 from what I'm looking at here. And tightens the definition of a, quote, qualified alien who is eligible for the program. Is that something that you wanted to see in these changes?
Well, we do want to see some tightening up of Medicaid. Unfortunately, the vulnerable population in Pennsylvania and across the country is waiting in line while people that really don't qualify for Medicaid as we know it are actually taking up the subsidies. They get 7 times the amount of a subsidy from the federal government than people that traditionally qualified. That's unfair, and so we're trying to work those details out, and that's part of that.
What happened inside the White House meeting today? How would you describe how that went?
Well, I'm careful to characterize our conversations with the president because we want to be able to have those conversations in confidence. But I would say it was productive. We got a lot of discussions about the concerns that we have and about how to get a good product and what he can do to help to get that good product. Of course, there are some great things in the bill, but this is a day where we looked at a bond sale where the basis went up 100 points. And, that's a concern for many of us as we don't want to see these continued debts and deficits. And we need to make sure that we're turning the trajectory of spending in Washington, D.C. on the right course of correction. And that's part of this discussion as well.
Did the president offer to sign executive orders on cuts or Medicaid or anything like that to get you to vote yes on this?
Well, like I said, I don't want to particularly characterize the confidence of the conversation, but what I can tell you is the president did agree to work as the executive branch with the legislative branch to address our concerns across the board, from the things like the Inflation Reduction Act, which is so-called, which is essentially handouts to wind and solar billionaires and things like that, and to also bend the cost and the spending curve down. So we're working on a collaborative effort where we can, and I think I would characterize the tenor of the conversation that way.
But you won't say if he promised to sign executive orders?
No, I won't talk about anything the president or anybody else promised.
Okay, some people may hear that and say it sounds like a yes, but I'll let your comment stand. Speaker Johnson wants this done by this weekend, by Memorial Day. I know you've argued that's not a real deadline in your view. Do you expect to vote on this tonight still?
I don't know if it's going to come tonight. Like I said, we just got the language, and people like me will be upset with our leadership if we don't get a chance to really go through it and read the whole thing. And so I think that's important for all members. I've often said, and I will say again, and I'll say it right here, and I would say it to the speaker as well, it's more important to get it correct than to get it fast. We need to get it right as opposed to fast. So if we have to wait a few hours or a few days to get it right, that's really important, because this is going to be enduring. We have to get it through the Senate, and we want to make sure we get the best product that we can.
Okay. Well, Manu Raju will probably be following you around with a camera until you say you're a yes or no. Congressman Scott Perry, thank you for joining us on the Breaking News tonight.
Well, thank you. God bless you.
And my next source tonight is a Republican Congressman, Dan Crenshaw of Texas, who joins me now and is also reading through these changes as they just came out, truly, as you were sitting down on set. What do you make of what you're seeing so far in there? You on board with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I was on board with it before this. I'm probably more on board with it now. Look, some of these were important, and some of these things I was in favor of already. I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee, so we've been debating the Medicaid issue for months. I appreciate others' opinions on that. They deserve to have those opinions. They're members of Congress, and we made some changes. Now, like, I actually think we should go further on Medicaid reforms, and I think those colleagues who advocated for these changes also agree with that. So here's what happened, just from me reading it in front of you right now. I can barely read it because I'm a little bit blinder than you are. So one of the big things that they wanted was, so the work requirements didn't kick in until 2029. Okay, we changed that to 2026. The reason we had originally at 2029 was because that's what HHS said at the time they needed to make it happen. We're now telling them, you know what, make it happen faster, and I don't think that's unreasonable.
But can I ask you on Medicaid, because part of what your more moderate colleagues are worried about is changing, for example, what the federal government matches that states do on Medicaid. They're worried about that. Do you have concerns, even though you wanted to go further, that maybe going further could hurt your more moderate colleagues?
That's exactly the issue, right? I want to go further. I think we should normalize expansion state, the FMAP for expansion states. So, just so everyone knows, if you expanded your Medicaid population under Obamacare, you get a 90% match from the federal government. That's well above what your actual match should be. That match is generally based on the per capita income per state, so it's different for every state, but it's usually between, 70 and 50%. It's not 90. So it's very unfair to states who said, hey, you know what, no, we're going to be fiscally, like Texas, we're going to be fiscally responsible. We're not going to expand to that Medicaid population, which, by the way, is wealthier people, not wealthy, but wealthier people than the people that Medicaid was meant for, which is the poor and children and the sick. And so there is a very good argument that you need to normalize what's called that FMAP, which is that federal match. That's not happening at all. I mean, look, I'm in favor of per capita caps, which is just simply freezing that Medicaid population, that expansion population. We're not even doing that. We're taking the lightest touch possible on Medicaid, let's be honest.
But you were already, I'm sure, there is a question of whether or not it'll be framed like that. Obviously, Democrats like.
Oh, they're framing it very different, but they're also not telling the truth.
But the big question and big concern, well, people will lose coverage because
I'll tell
the
you about
subsidies
those
are
people.
expiring as well. But on the concerns that people like Andy Harris have and Chip Roy is about it adding to the deficit and blowing up on you right before the midterms, potentially, something like that. Do you share those concerns? Because you were already a yes on this. It is going to add to the deficit by multiple estimates.
Yeah, look, our deficit is a product of massive entitlement spending, and this is actually it's 70% of our spending. You start adding DOD and VA benefits, now you're talking about almost 90% of our spending. This is the first time we've even taken an attempt to bend that cost curve, and we're only focusing on Medicaid. We didn't touch Medicare. We didn't touch Social Security. This is the first time we're even doing that. So I tell our fiscal hawks, like, look, you're not wrong. Okay, I agree with you, but I also want to propose a thought experiment to you. I'm going to make you king for a day. Do you want to raise taxes or not? Democrats are pretty clear on this. They want your taxes to go up in December. Their position is very clear.
Because they don't want to extend the Trump tax.
They don't want to extend the tax
so
cuts. But that means just to be clear, that means your taxes and everybody's taxes watching go up in December.
But you do have concerns about it hurting the deficit. I mean, could this bite Republicans essentially later down the road?
I don't think so. I think we're bending cost curves of massive programs that we've never done before. We're putting in very pro-growth policies. And look, the CBO has been wrong. Like, for instance, they were off by about $1 trillion in revenue when the first tax cuts came around. Like, they're just because
Yeah, but it was multiple estimates, as you know. But
it's because they don't do
Yep.
dynamic scoring. It's not their fault. Like, by law, they do a scoring a very specific way, and it's philosophical too. Are we really going into debt because we're letting you keep more of your money? We're keeping taxes the same. There's no tax cuts in here. We're keeping tax cuts the same. We're making sure your taxes don't increase. The Democrats want your taxes to increase, and on top of that, I think we're bending cost curves of programs that are totally unsustainable.
All right.
I think we should go a lot further on that, to be honest. But I'm happy with getting 218 votes and moving this forward.
we'll see if you get there, Congressman Dan
Might be
Crenshaw.
tonight.
Still waiting on a few yeses. Thanks so much for your time tonight.